Chapter 24, Secrets Leak. I watched the light of a New York dawn crawl across the ceiling of the master suite. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about the opening bell of the NYSE or the pending litigation against Vane. I was thinking about the weight of the woman sleeping beside me and the cold, brilliant spark of the diamond on her finger. We had won. The building was safe, the IP was secure, and I had finally, officially, claimed the only thing that mattered. Maya stirred against me, her breath warm against my chest. She looked soft in the morning light, her hair a dark silk tangle against the white pillows. The stature of the senior advisor was gone, replaced by the raw, beautiful reality of the woman who had saved me from my own arrogance. I reached out, tracing the line of her jaw with my thumb. She leaned into the touch, her eyes fluttering open. "You're staring again," she whispered, a sleepy smile touching her lips. "I'm admiring my investment," I teased, though the word felt inadequate now. "I think we moved past investment around $4 billion ago, Alexander." She lifted her hand, looking at the ring. "It still feels like a dream, a very expensive, high-stakes dream." "It's real, Maya, as real as the city outside that window." I leaned down to kiss her, a slow, lingering promise of a day without wars when the silence was shattered. Not by a phone call, but by the heavy, rhythmic thudding of the private elevator chime. Multiple times. Fast. It was the signal for a level 1 emergency. I was out of bed in a second, grabbing my robe. Maya sat up, the sheet clutched to her chest, her eyes wide with a sudden, sharp dread. "Alexander, what is it?" "Stay here," I commanded, though I knew she wouldn't. I walked into the living room just as the doors slid open. Marcus stepped out, followed by the head of my PR firm, Sarah Vance. They both looked like they had just walked out of a plane crash. Marcus was holding a tablet, his hands shaking. "Sir," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "It's out, all of it." "What's out? Vane's bankruptcy?" "No, sir." Sarah Vance stepped forward, her face a mask of professional horror. "The contract, the original Sterling Blackwood acquisition agreement, the locked-in clause, every page, every signature, every cold-blooded legal term. It was leaked to the Global Financial Review an hour ago. It's the top trending story on every platform in the world." I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart, which had been beating with the rhythm of a man in love, suddenly slowed to a cold, predatory thrum. "Every page?" I asked, my voice dropping to a low, lethal vibration. "Every page," Marcus confirmed, handing me the tablet. I looked at the screen. The headline was a jagged blade to the throat, "The Billionaire's Prisoner," inside the illicit contract that bought Maya Sterling. Beneath the headline was a high-resolution scan of page 12, the locked-in clause. The words I had written to ensure I owned her mind and her time. In the context of a boardroom, it was ruthless. In the context of the public eye, it looked like modern-day slavery. Alexander. Maya was standing in the doorway of the bedroom, wearing my white dress shirt, her face pale. She saw the look on my face. She saw the way Marcus and Sarah wouldn't meet her eyes. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just held out the tablet. I watched her read. I watched her eyes scan the words she had signed in desperation, the words we had spent weeks trying to move past. I watched the color leave her lips. She reached up to touch the ring on her finger, and for the first time, she looked at it like it was a shackle. "They're calling me a victim," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They're saying I was coerced. They're saying the Horizon Project is a fruit of the poisonous tree." "We'll fix it," I said, stepping toward her. "How?" she cried, backing away. How do you fix a document that has your signature and mine on it? How do you fix the fact that the world now thinks the only reason I'm in this building is because you bought me? The fire of Act II hadn't just returned. It had turned into a nuclear winter. Maya POV. The humiliation was a physical weight, a thick, suffocating layer of ash that filled my lungs. I stood in the center of the penthouse, the glass walls making me feel more exposed than ever. I looked at my phone. The notifications were a tidal wave. At TechCrunch, is the Blackwood Sterling engagement a PR stunt to cover up a human rights violation? At WSJ, investor panic as Blackwood Tower debt acquisition linked to coercive locked-in clause. At Daily Mail, the Gilded Cage, Maya Sterling's father held as collateral in billionaire's dark deal. They know about my father, I whispered, the tablet slipping from my hand. They're saying he's a hostage. They're saying I'm a puppet. Maya, listen to me, Alexander said, grabbing my shoulders. His eyes were wild, filled with a mixture of rage and a terrifyingly clear-eyed desperation. Vane did this. He used the last of his resources to leak the physical file. He knew he couldn't take the building, so he's trying to take the reputation. It doesn't matter who did it. I shouted, shoving his hands away. It's true. The words are true. You did lock me in. You did use my father's medical bills to force my hand. I crossed it out. But you wrote it first. And now the whole world knows that the senior advisor isn't a genius, she's a transaction. I'm a joke, Alexander. Everything I've worked for, the science, the ethics, it's all gone. I'm just the girl who got locked in by the ruthless billionaire. I looked at the ring on my finger. 10 minutes ago, it was a promise. Now it was a target. I have to go, I said, heading for the guest wing. Go where? To my father. I need to make sure the press hasn't found a way into the medical suite. I need to be somewhere that doesn't smell like your ambition. Maya, stay in the penthouse. The lobby is a war zone. There are hundreds of reporters down there. Then let them see me. I turned on him, my eyes burning with tears I refused to shed. Let them see the victim they're so worried about. Maybe I'll tell them the truth, that I was desperate enough to sign anything, and you were ruthless enough to let me. I walked away, the sound of my bare feet on the marble echoing in the silence. I heard Alexander shouting for Marcus to get the legal team on a conference call, but his voice sounded miles away. The secret was out. The foundation was cracked. And as I reached my father's room and collapsed into the chair beside his bed, I realized that the first surrender had been a lie. We hadn't surrendered to each other. We had just surrendered to the inevitable. Alexander POV. I want the source of the leak. I growled into the phone. I don't care about the journalist. I want the person who handed them the physical file. It was in a vaulted safe in the tower. Someone on the inside had the code. I slammed the phone down and looked at Sarah Vance. What's the damage? The stock is down 12 points in pre-market, she said, her voice clinical. The Knight Group is quiet, too quiet. Alistair Knight doesn't like scandal, Alexander, especially not the kind that involves coercion and indentured servitude. He's a gentleman of the old school. He'll pull his investment if he thinks his name is being dragged through the dirt. He already signed the blood oath. A blood oath can be washed away by a public relations nightmare. You need to get ahead of this. We need an interview, both of you, together. She won't do it, I said, looking toward the guest wing. She's shattered. Then you do it alone. Deny everything. Say the clause was a draft. Say it was a joke that was never intended for the final version. It has our signatures on it, Sarah. It's not a joke. I paced the room, my heart a frantic, rhythmic beat. I have to find out who did this. I have to kill the story at the source. Marcus stepped forward, his face pale. Sir, I ran the access logs for the vault. There was only one person who accessed the Sterling file in the last 48 hours besides you and me. Who? Eleanor Blackwood. The room went silent. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. My mother, she had visited the penthouse yesterday. She had seen the engagement. She had seen the steward becoming a man, and she had decided to burn the bridge herself. She hadn't come to save the empire. She had come to ensure that if I didn't run it her way, I wouldn't run it at all. She did it, I whispered. She leaked the contract to prove that Maya is a liability. She's forcing the board's hand. Sir, if your mother is the leak, we can't sue, Marcus said. It would be corporate suicide. I don't care about the board, I said, my voice turning into a lethal, mechanical thing. I care about the woman in the other room. Get the car ready. I'm going to see my mother. Maya POV. I sat by my father's bed, watching the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest. He was the only person in this world who didn't want anything from me. He was the only one who didn't see me as an asset or a victim. The medical staff were moving quietly, their eyes downcast. They had seen the news. Everyone had. I felt like I was wearing a scarlet letter. The door opened. It wasn't Alexander. It was a nurse I didn't recognize. Miss Sterling, there's a delivery for you. It was cleared by security. She handed me an envelope. It was thick, heavy, and smelled of expensive, old-fashioned perfume. I opened it. Inside was a single, handwritten note on Eleanor Blackwood's private stationery. A bird who chooses to stay in the cage after the door is opened is no longer a prisoner, Maya. She is a collaborator. The world doesn't care about your love. They care about the price. I've simply made the price public. If you want to save Alexander, leave him. If you stay, you will be the reason he loses everything. I felt a surge of cold, focused rage. Eleanor, the woman who had looked me in the eye and told me she liked me, she had done this. She had weaponized my own desperation to destroy the man she claimed to be protecting. I looked at the note, then at my father. She was right about one thing. As long as I was here, Alexander was a target. As long as the locked-in girl was at his side, he was a villain. The night group would pull out. The board would oust him. The Horizon Project, my father's legacy, would be dismantled and sold for parts. I looked at the ring on my finger. It was beautiful. It was real. But was it worth the ashes of his life? I stood up and walked into the living room. Alexander was gone. The penthouse was filled with the hum of PR consultants and security guards. No one looked at me. I was the scandal now. I walked to the private elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. Miss Sterling. Russo said, stepping into my path. Mr. Blackwood's instructions. Mr. Blackwood's instructions are for a woman who is locked in, I said, my voice cold and hard. I'm not that woman anymore. I'm the senior advisor of this company, and I have a statement to make. Move, Russo. He saw the fire in my eyes, not the fire of passion, but the fire of a woman who was done being a pawn. He moved. I rode the elevator down. The lobby was a wall of noise. The moment the doors opened, the reporters surged forward. The security line groaned under the pressure. Flashbulbs blinded me. Maya, did he force you to sign? Are you a hostage or a gold digger? What's the price of a human soul, Miss Sterling? I walked to the center of the lobby and climbed onto the base of the marble fountain. I didn't need a microphone. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. My name is Maya Sterling, I said, my voice ringing through the cavernous space. And I have seen the contract you are all talking about. The reporters leaned in, their cameras focused on my face. The words in that document are real, I continued. Alexander Blackwood is a ruthless man. He is a man who saw a woman in trouble and used his power to ensure she became part of his empire. He is the man who wrote the locked-in clause. I saw the headlines forming in their eyes. She's turning on him. But, I said, my voice growing stronger, he is also the man who realized that a contract is no substitute for a partner. He is the man who crossed out that clause before the world ever knew it existed. And he is the man who saved my father's life when no one else would. I held up my hand, the diamond catching the light of 100 flashes. You call me a victim, you call me a prisoner, but I am the one who wrote the code. I am the one who saved this tower yesterday, and I am the one who chose to stay. If you want to talk about coercion, talk about a world that allows a woman like me to be financially cornered in the first place. Don't blame the man who gave me a way out. I stepped down from the fountain and walked back toward the elevator. The silence remained for a few seconds before the eruption of questions began again. I didn't answer. I had made my statement. I had defended the monster. But as the doors closed, I realized that I had just done exactly what Alina wanted. I had made our relationship the lead story. I had tied my identity to his scandal forever. And as the lift ascended, I took the ring off my finger. I loved him, but I wouldn't let him burn because of me. Alexander POV. I was in my mother's office at the Blackwood estate in Upper Manhattan when the news broke. She was sitting behind her desk, sipping tea, looking as unbothered as if we were discussing the weather. I was standing in front of her, my hands clenched into fists, the rage vibrating in my chest. Why? I demanded. Why would you do this to your own son? I did it for my son, Alina said, setting her cup down. You were becoming weak, Alexander. You were choosing a woman over the empire. I simply showed you that the woman is the empire's destruction. By tonight, the board will vote to remove you. And then I will step in as interim CEO, settle the Sterling claim, and the Blackwood name will remain untarnished. You leaked the contract, I hissed. You betrayed the family. I protected the legacy. A legacy you were willing to throw away for a girl who... The television on the wall behind her flared with a breaking news alert. Unprecedented scene at Blackwood Tower as Maya Sterling makes a public statement defending the billionaire CEO. We both turned. I watched Maya. I watched her stand on that fountain. I watched her defend me with a ferocity that made my heart ache. She was magnifique. She was a storm. She was everything I had ever wanted. And then she walked away. Miss Sterling was seen removing her engagement ring as she entered the elevator. The room went silent. I looked at my mother. She was smiling, a slow, chilling smile of victory. She's clever, Alina murmured. She knows she can't stay. She's saving you, Alexander, just as I knew she would. A common woman thinks of herself. A partner thinks of the empire. She's not a common woman, I said, my voice a hollow, terrifying rasp. And I'm not the steward you raised me to be. I walked to her desk and leaned over, my face inches from hers. You think you've won. You think you can take this company from me. By the time I'm done with you, Mother, you won't even have a seat on the foundation board. You wanted a war. You've got one. But this time, I'm not fighting for the name. I'm fighting for the woman you just tried to kill. I turned and walked out. I drove back to the tower like a madman. I didn't care about the press. I didn't care about the stock price. All I could think about was Maya. I burst into the penthouse. It was quiet. The PR team was gone. Sarah Vance was on the phone in the kitchen. I ran to the guest wing. The door to my father's room was open. Maya was sitting by the bed, her bags packed by the door. She was wearing her old jeans and the same sweater she'd worn on the first day. She looked like the girl from the library again. She looked like she was already gone. "Maya," I breathed, stopping in the doorway. She looked up. Her eyes were red, but her face was calm. A devastating, final kind of calm. "I made the statement, Alexander. I told them the truth. The scandal will settle. The night group will see that I'm not a victim, and they'll stay for the science." "I don't care about the science. I care about you." I walked toward her, but she held up a hand. "I'm leaving. I've already arranged for a private ambulance to move my father to the St. Jude Clinic. Leo is waiting for him." The mention of Leo Mercer was a knife to the gut, but I didn't flinch. I deserved it. "You can't go," I said, my voice breaking. "I just told my mother I was going to burn her world for you." "That's the problem, Alexander. You shouldn't have to burn anything. As long as I'm here, you're a man with a weakness. As long as the locked-in girl is in your bed, the empire is at risk." She stood up and walked to the door. She stopped in front of me and reached into her pocket. She took my hand and placed the ring in my palm. "I love you," she whispered. "But the secret is out. And we both know that in your world, a secret is the only thing that keeps you safe." "I don't want to be safe. I want to be with you." "Then find a way to be the man who doesn't need a room to own," she said. She walked past me, the scent of jasmine lingering in the air for one final, agonizing second. I heard the elevator chime. I heard the doors close. I stood in the empty room. The diamond in my hand felt like a piece of ice. I looked at the vigil of justice in the foyer. The scales were finally balanced. She was free, and I was alone. But as the sun began to set over the city, casting a long, blood-red glow over the empire I had fought so hard to keep, I realized the truth. The secrets had leaked. The foundation had crumbled. But the fire was only just beginning. And this time, I wasn't going to be the one who controlled the burn. I was going to be the one who walked through the flames to get her back. Alexander POV, midnight. I sat in the dark living room, a glass of scotch in one hand and the ring in the other. The news cycle was already shifting. Maya's statement had been a masterstroke. She had turned the locked-in clause from a scandal into a story of redemption. The stock was stabilizing. Alastair Knight had sent a message of continued support. I had won the war. But as I looked at the empty chair where she had sat yesterday, I realized that I had lost the only thing that made the win matter. I picked up my phone and dialed Marcus. "Sir." "I want her watched. Not followed, not guarded, just make sure she's safe at the clinic. And Marcus." "Yes, sir." "Find out who the primary donor for the St. Jude Clinic is. I want to buy the building." "Sir, you already own half the city." "I don't care," I said, looking out at the lights of Manhattan. "I'm going to build a world where she doesn't have to choose between me and her freedom. And if I have to buy every building in New York to do it, then that's what I'll do." The secrets had leaked. But the most important secret of all was still safe. I wasn't the man who owned the room. I was the man who would do anything to get back the woman who did. Next chapter. Chapter 25, Power Shift.